All right, we're starting.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Girl Dads Chronicles, Episode 1. Today, we are going to be discussing pretty much how we became girl dads and everything in between. So, for those who don't know, my name is Ricardo, aka Rico.
And I'm Vernon. Just Vernon.
Exactly. Just Vernon, right? So we're going to be discussing everything surrogacy, how we got to the point where we are now, and how we are, became girl dads of two amazing, beautiful little girls. So let's jump right into it. So back in 2017, right, we went to a conference called Men Having Babies, and it was up in New York. And pretty much Vernon found everything. He found this conference. He was like, hey, we're going up to this conference in New York. We went there. The conference was, great. What was it, 2-day conference?
2-day conference. Lots of information overload about every step of the process, every possibility of becoming a parent, right, pretty much, or for men specifically.
And Men Having Babies is a nonprofit that assists, gay men, couples with having babies and kind of walking them through that process. They kind of have, agencies, surrogate agencies, and clinics and everything that they work with that they can provide you with access to all of those resources. So, went there in 2017 while we were at the conference, and this is the thing, we were at the conference, we were the only black people at the conference. I mean, there were...
At least, if not the only, very few of us were there. It was definitely predominantly white, non-people of color, pretty much.
Yeah. And we found ourselves kind of, just sitting right in the middle. And I think at one point I kind of just glanced around and I was like, do you see this? But all in all, we heard some amazing stories of surrogacy journeys from different parents, intended parents, or dads who have had children. We actually even heard some stories from surrogates themselves, as well as kids of gay dads. And it was kind of like a round table where the kids got together and they answered some questions from, some of the intended parents or dads, dads to be, we call them they're called intended parents in the audience. So we heard about the American process and we heard about the Canadian process of having children. And I think in that moment, while we were at that conference, we kind of decided that we were going to do the Canadian way. We had went to breakout sessions with attorneys. Everyone that was involved in the process, they had at least one person there. You can go into these kind of breakout sessions, seminars, and learn about each step of the process. So we said, okay, we're going to go with the Canadian way. And we heard stories from other dads who have had children, even dads who have had children the Canadian way and had issues with getting their children back across the border and things like that. And Vernon, being the researcher that he is, he was researching things immediately, trying to find out, why those issues were happening. But we wanted to go with the cheaper option. And because Canada was the cheaper option, it was a no-brainer for us. So we are...
Not to say that they are the cheapest option. They were the most cost-efficient and cost-effective and geographically to us, because there are a lot more countries that offer this service based on just specifically being from the United States and what the U.S. dollar means in these other countries, right, where you can spend less in U.S. dollars to get the same result. And there's a lot of research out there, but definitely the location and cost efficiency, as opposed to being in the United States, was one of the driving factors. And a lot of the laws in Canada as it pertains to surrogacy, whereas in the States, it's it's just like it's all about money. It comes off as though that it's a lot about money and less authentic people really just wanting to be a part of it.
Right. And I mean, you have other places that you can go. And also, the benefit for us was that healthcare is free in Canada. So that was, more bills that we didn't have to worry about as it pertained to the process.
Well, that's not saying free because they paid for it. But all our citizens there have access to healthcare. Therefore, all the surrogates have access to healthcare in the United States. It is a whole thing. And that can be a part of the finances.
Right. So we were at this conference and we said, okay, we're going to go the Canadian way. So then we kind of met with the doctors from this clinic called Create. And his name was Dr. Lee Brock. And he also had another doctor with him. I don't remember her name. Do you remember her name?
I don't want to pronounce it wrong. I don't remember it.
But there were two doctors. And Dr. Lee Brock was our main doctor. He's the doctor that worked with us. So we kind of had a consultation with Dr. Lee Brock and this doctor as well that was with him. And we told him what we wanted. We told him we want to have twins. And at that time, we realized that it was called a dual embryo transfer. And we knew... Well, Vernon knew it was called a dual embryo transfer because, again, prior to even going to this conference, Vernon had did tons and tons of research. So we told Dr. Lee Brock, hey, we want this dual embryo transfer. And what we heard as we have gone about the conference and we had went to different kind of like setups and stands and everything to meet the different clinics, everyone was just like, dual embryo transfers are extremely risky. Like, we try not to do them. We don't normally do them. It's a risky procedure. So...
people don't know what dual embryo transfer is.
Oh, so a dual embryo transfer... You want to tell them, Randy? You tell them what a dual embryo transfer is.
Basically, you're transferring two fertilized eggs into the surrogate. And some people think that it's just called that because there are two of us. But even if it was one person with fertilized eggs, if they transferred two, it's still called a dual embryo transfer. In our case, we fertilized eggs and then they transferred one of each of our eggs. So all in all, it's still called a dual embryo transfer. It is the transfer of two eggs. And then on to the risk of that. And then again, just linking it to a regular natural pregnancy of multiples, it's automatically a high-risk pregnancy. But the scientists and the doctors all look at it in regards to it being a higher risk that's self-imposed, and then the opportunity for the multiples to become more multiples.
Right. So it is a risky process doing a dual embryo transfer, and we kind of knew that. And Dr. Lee Brock kind of explained that to us once we told him what we wanted. And we were like, this is what we want. And he was like, yeah, but this is a risky procedure. But we were like, can you do it? Can you do it? And he said, yes, we can do it. I've done it before. And we were like, okay, boom. Well, this is, we're interested. And we kind of decided at that point, at that moment, this is what we were going to do. We were going to go with this clinic called Create in Canada. And we wanted Dr. Lee Brock to be our doctor. Fast forward, we left the conference and we immediately kind of got on everything. We did what? We immediately went home, came back to DC from New York, and we started looking at egg donor agencies. Bailey, stop. I'm sorry, the dog is just licking my... Stop, girl. Stop. So we came back and we started immediately looking at egg donor agencies. And egg donors, for those who don't know, are women who, selflessly, donate their eggs to, families who can't have children or to, intended parents and gay dads like us. So we went on two websites, Little Miracles and... what was it? Little Miracles and Egg Helpers. Those were our two websites that we went on. Initially, we were on Egg Helpers, and we found a surrogate on Egg Helpers that we were like, oh, we found an egg donor on, yes, thank you. We found an egg donor on Egg Helpers, and I think she was like Indian and Moroccan and something like that. She was definitely Indian. I was the one that found her, so she was Indian. She was like Indian and Moroccan, and she was a few things. And we had decided, okay, this is who we would go with. But then when we decided to book her, when we, reached out to the agency and was like, hey, we want to book this particular egg donor, they had came back and said, hey, she was just been booked. She's currently in the process of providing eggs for other intended parents. And we knew that would put a stall in the process of getting eggs and creating the embryos and just holding up the process just in general. So,
and in context, holding up the process of a self-imposed timeline, because you can very well get an egg donor and wait for however long you want to, and not have a surrogate in sight, or not even have plans to go that point. So they could be completely separate. Again, self-imposed timeline of how I ideally just wanted to see it pan out.
Yeah, we wanted it done. We didn't want to hold up. We didn't want to wait. We didn't want anything to stall the process. So we made sure that we just kind of kept it moving along. So we found another egg donor on Little Miracles, and she was a 19-year-old Vietnamese woman. And we decided, hey, this is, do you want to do this? Is this the route you want to go? And and you may have questions like, oh, what made you go with a Vietnamese woman? Or what made you go with, want to go with an Indian or anything like that? So we wanted to go with anyone who had some sort of history, right? Someone who, any type of ethnicity. A person of color, kind of period, right? So that's what we wanted to go with. And out of our options, we decided to go with this Vietnamese woman, 19 years old, who in turn provided us with 25 eggs in total off the first go round. So we, she went to our clinic. She had, she had to get tested.
They do a psychological test. They do a physical exam, check the status of her follicles and the eggs, blood test, and they also do genetic testing to ensure that there are no, like most African Americans have like the sickle cell gene, so we're more prone to that. So they will not allow you, well, they'll advise you against and give you that option. So all in all, everything medically was good. They had concerns about her psychological exam.
Right. So I remember, I think I was like walking the dog. I let the dog outside, Bailey, who was just licking my hand profusely, right? So I I was walking Bailey outside, and all of a sudden I got a call, and it was like, our doctor, it was Dr. Lee Brock, and he was like, hey, just wanted to tell you about the exam that we had with the egg donor. And immediately I'm like, ooh, were you at home or did I think I called Vernon on like three-way because he was, I think, at work at the time or something. And
I was at home. You weren't here.
No, I was at home. We weren't even at this house. We were at the other house. Yes, we were.
Okay.
We were at the other house. Right? I think, Vernon always thinks that he knows the timelines, right? I rely on him for the details as it relates to the medical things. But as far as the timelines, I got that, okay? So, either way, I got a call from Dr. Lee Brock, and he said they had some concerns. So I immediately was like, oh my God, what's going on? What's happening? And then he said that her medical test and everything came back okay, but psychologically, she had experienced some trauma that wasn't in her profile when we had initially booked her online, or her online profile on the egg donor website. And we was like, okay, so, like trauma to the point it's concerning to, we wouldn't, utilize her eggs. And, he said there was a history of alcohol abuse in her family. She had experienced some abuse. Some neglect.
She was raised by her family, her other relatives.
Right, she was raised by her other relatives, and kind of experienced all this pretty much this trauma. And our immediate response was, "Oh, that's it? Well, I mean, we'll take the eggs, right?" Because we kind of thought about it, and we thought, well, I mean, yes, she's been through all this trauma. However, she was able to bounce back. She graduated from school. She was kind of getting into her profession and everything like that. So we thought that resilience and, that ability to kind of just pick herself up and keep it moving, that was something that, if anything, we wanted our children to kind of have those traits and those qualities as well. So we decided to move forward with that particular egg donor. And I mean, our experience with Little Miracles was just amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, the coordinator of Little Miracles, she was just, I mean, I just can't even explain how great she was. She communicated. She allowed us, we did an anonymous egg donation. That saved some money on our side, because if we were to do a known donor, then we would have to put a contract into place because there's some
in the relationship, and they'll have them, and right. There's just a lot of legal things that go into that. So being an anonymous, you still can put a contract in place, right. But the chances of anything interfering, it's like the odds of, and we're doing this in Canada, but we are U.S. citizens and live in the United States. So the chances of us running into her, walking around, or it being right. A thing is less and slim to none.
Right.
So those are two options that people can explore when choosing an egg donor, to know that you have those options. And then there are egg donors who only want to be known donors. Mm-hmm. They only want to be a part of that family, and they want to know what's happening. And then there are things that go into play what that looks like mm-hmm. after the fact. All of that gets spelled out in the contract.
Right. So we decided we were going to save us a little more money on our part. So we were going to do the anonymous egg donation without the contract in place, like Vernon said. And so we did that. But however, the coordinator at Little Miracles, even though it was an anonymous donation, she allowed us to communicate through her to the egg donor, and the egg donor would communicate through the coordinator to us. So we kind of were able to gauge what the type of person that the egg donor was, based on the emails that she would send, how friendly she was. And that really was kind of like, it really kind of pushed and boosted us. We were like, yeah, we know we made the right decision at that point. So after, they extracted her eggs, we, on our part down here in DC, we had to go do a semen analysis at our own doctor's offices. And then those results were then sent up to Create Clinic in Canada. And then we went up there pretty much to Canada to provide semen. So we drove up to Canada. It's only about a 9-hour drive or something like that. 8.5 really. Toronto, hour drive, right? Toronto hour drive. But it was only about an 8.5, 9-hour drive. We went up there to the clinic for the first time, and they kind of gave us these cups and put us in this room, separate rooms that they had, with this terrible porn. I mean, this porn was probably from back in 1975 or 1989 when you was a child, and you probably shouldn't even been watching porn on television. Okay? That's how bad this stuff was, right? So we went in there. They told us in advance, there's no, there can't be any intercourse because that could interfere with the semen. No saliva, no lubrication. So we just supposed to go up in there and beat off dry in this cup and do nothing? to this terrible porn. You know, we made it work. You know, we had to put on my Vidster. Okay, for those that know about my Vidster. I'm pretty sure if you're watching, you know about my Vidster. So we had to pull up some of my Vidster videos, and we just had to make it do what it do. All in all, we provided our semen that day to the clinic. I think, did we stay up there tonight? No, we stayed up there that night, didn't we? We did stay up there. No? Okay, well, we drove back to DC that same day. We just went up there to provide our semen and come back. After that, they created the embryos. So our doctor and the clinic, they created the embryos. So they took, the 25 eggs that they had, and they split them in half. 13 eggs went to myself, 12 eggs went to Vernon. And they took Vernon's semen and created those embryos, 12 little embryos. And then they took my semen and created the embryos with the 13. After that, they waited. We did like a 5-day blasto stage, right?
Well, they check it at 3 and 5 days.
3 and 5 days. And they kind of weed out all of the bad embryos, and keep the best embryos. And I think we ended up with, did I have, 5, 3? I think
like
5.
4 and 3.
4 and 3. Yeah, something like that. I think Vernon had like about 4 embryos and I had about 3 embryos. And that was kind of like the final, out of the 13 I had and out of the 12 that he had, the 25 in total, we had 7 pretty much good altogether. He had 4 and I had 3. So, as that was happening, we were in the process of trying to find a surrogate because we knew that the missing piece to the puzzle was a surrogate.
The timeline is a little off, but because that was already happening.
Yeah, so we were, I said while this was going on, we were in the process of finding a surrogate.
She was already found.
When we had drove up and provided our semen?
Yes, she was found in like January.
I don't believe it. I can pull up receipts, okay, from when we paid her. And,
well, we found her.
I could pull up emails.
It's January.
And either way, I don't believe it's in January, but we'll say January, right? So either way, we did not want, like we said in the beginning, we didn't want to hold up the process at all, right? We wanted this to be pretty fast. We wanted this to be a smooth sailing process. So, we made sure that we had everything in place, right? Either way, we had our surrogate in place before, our embryos were created so that, we could do kind of like a fresh transfer. Well, we did frozen. So once they create the embryos, they can freeze them or they can do a fresh transfer. We actually had our embryos frozen because our surrogate was still in the process of going through her psychological exams, her medical exams, and everything like that.
And they had to be frozen in order to do the genetic testing. Mm-hmm. So they wait until the embryos get to the blastocyst stage, mm-hmm. and then they freeze them there, and they do genetic testing on all of those embryos. And of those, they thaw the best of the 2 at the time of when the transfer will occur. So right. They pretty much just freeze everything in time, take samples from all of them, and test them. And then Create has the technology, whereas they don't have to be disturbed. Some clinics, and this is just something you just have to ask, some clinics, they will be in that cycle, and they more or less have to be disturbed to check them every day to see what's happening, whereas Create, they have the technology, whereas the embryos can just develop in this pretty much this container, more or less. And it's constantly taking pictures and videos throughout the cycle, and they can watch them develop, and they get rated, and each of them have a score. And just based on the visual, they each have a score, and then they'll genetically test all of them. So that's happening while it's frozen. That's why they freeze them at the 5 days to do the analysis to choose the best to transfer.
Yeah. So then we found, our surrogate was in the process of going through, her medical exam and everything like that. And let's go back to how we actually found our surrogate. So we found our surrogate like Vernon said, a little earlier on because we wanted the process to go smooth. And we kind of did an initial kind of like, once we got connected to our surrogate, first of all, we paid a very expensive agency fee for our surrogate, so I would not encourage you all to use that particular, agency for surrogacy because
a lot of the agencies are expensive. So that is just
this particular agency fee for this surrogate was a lot of money. Okay?
A lot of them are high, though. So you can...
But this one was particularly
it wasn't
higher. Okay? So... then we kind of did an initial call once we got connected to our surrogate. We did an initial kind of like FaceTime. It wasn't like a FaceTime. It was like on the computer, kind of Skype. We did like a Skype call with our surrogate and with the agency president, who then kind of like connected us. And once we got connected to our surrogate, it was like an instant kind of like connection. Even prior to like learning about our surrogate, we wanted to make sure that we chose a surrogate who had successful pregnancies in the past. And that's for any intended parents out there who want to have children. You want to make sure that your surrogate has successful pregnancies. So she had 2 kids of her own that were teenagers. She also carried a single baby, which they call a singleton, for a heterosexual couple, a homosexual couple, and then she carried twins for a heterosexual couple. So we knew that we knew that the probability of her being able to successfully carry our twins was pretty high because she did carry twins before and she's had successful pregnancies in the past.
And known to have a beautiful uterus.
A very... He talked about her uterus this entire time. Yes, she has a beautiful uterus. And mind you, our surrogate was a 42-year-old at the time. She was a 42-year-old white woman. So she, the age thing may have been like 40, 42, but she carried twins. She's had successful pregnancy. So that outweighed kind of like the age. And we knew that she was capable of doing it.
Also based on just like the natural body and biological clock, you will want to get a younger egg donor and then a more mature surrogate who's obviously, you can't be a surrogate if you haven't carried children before, or at least one child, and one of your own. So if you have a surrogate that has been a surrogate before, then that lets you know that they have carried at least 2 pregnancies because they have to have a child of their own. Egg donors, they cannot have kids at all. Yeah. So age initially you may think is concerning, but the age of your surrogate being more mature can increase the chances of a successful pregnancy.
Yep. So, it was an instant connection. She showed us pictures of her kids. Her kids were like these little kind of like gorgeous, teenagers, that she had in the past, and we were just super excited. We exchanged numbers. We kind of did the WhatsApp thing, of course. She's in Canada, so we exchanged numbers, and we would communicate. And me personally, when we first got into this surrogacy thing, I was like, look, I just want her to have these babies, and that's it. I don't want to have any type of relationship. I want it to be kind of cut and dry. Have the babies, give us our children, and let's keep it moving. I don't want nothing to do with it. But as time went on, Vernon's perspective was completely different. He was just like, I want to have a relationship. I want to get to know her. I want to get to know her family, and everything about her. I was like, look, give me my kids. Okay. So, then, eventually as time went on, she became like literally a part of our family. And I don't know why my thought process was like that in the beginning, because you literally have someone that is carrying, your children. They're caring for your children literally with everything in them. Like they're, so much care that goes into surrogacy and being a surrogate. And she was just, she was perfect. Our surrogate was perfect. And in Canada, surrogacy, you aren't necessarily compensated for being a surrogate. So it's not like we're paying you to be a surrogate. It's an altruistic
surrogacy and altruistic egg donation, which means that they're doing it out of the kindness of their heart. They're doing it because it's an authentic thing that they want to do. And what you're paying for is the services that come with being pregnant. Right. You are paying for additional clothes. You're paying or compensating them for the gas that it takes to get to and from the doctor's appointments. You're paying them for their loss of wage, and also things to take into consideration if they have a spouse. If the spouse has to take off work to be of any support, you're paying for them as well. For us, in both situations, the egg donor and the surrogate, whenever they have to, the clinic was in Toronto. They live in different parts of Canada. So traveling to Toronto, hotel stays if applicable, you're paying for all the other expenses you're not paying for. And in the United States, somebody can say, hey, I'll be a surrogate, but it's going to cost you $40,000 just for me to be a surrogate. That's my salary. And you have to pay for insurance. And you have to pay for my travel. All the things that you're also paying for in Canada, you're paying all that stuff plus whatever that fee is for them to be that surrogate to you. Right. And
so you're just you're paying for, the expenses of being a surrogate. In Canada. That's kind of like, or the expenses of donating your eggs in Canada, that altruistic kind of, that kind of point of view. Yeah, point of view on it. And we love that. We love the fact that that's how, because in Canada, that's the law. You can't pay for surrogacy. So, we love the fact that that is how they view surrogacy, and the women that are actually doing it in Canada are actually doing it because they genuinely want to help. So that model that they have up there, we were kind of all in for. We were like, oh, this is great. So, we had got our surrogate, we learned about her and her family, and then eventually we found out that our surrogate had a girlfriend, and her girlfriend was extremely supportive of her throughout this process. Actually, I think that her girlfriend actually was super, super attached to the babies. I mean, they were together all the time. So, I mean, we would receive like these really cute pictures of like our surrogate's girlfriend, like laying on her belly on the girls. I mean, her girlfriend like cried during the birth and holding the babies. I mean, it just to invite them and have them be a part of our family was one of the best things, experiences of this process.
Invite us to be a part of their family.
Yes.
It was definitely a unique bond that I personally don't hear a whole lot about when having these discussions. Not that I have had a whole ton of discussions with individuals who've gone through surrogacy.
Specifically.
But the relationship was critical to us, specifically because we were in the United States. So we were far from them. So for me, it was important to communicate on a daily basis, to know what was going on, and really build that bond. And it was super authentic, and they were very genuine, and it was an amazing experience.
Right. I mean, we were up there with them. We would go up there, our family, we would take our family up there, spend time with them, hang out with them. We went bowling, go out to eat. So there were, they definitely invited us into their family as well. We know their children, and definitely a unique situation, like Vernon said. And it definitely, I felt like that was an added benefit to the process. It just made us feel much more comfortable with knowing that our surrogate is, she cares about us as fathers, and she cares about our children that she's carrying. And yeah, that was epic. That relationship is epic. I mean, we still talk to our surrogate to this day, right? And I'm hoping that on episode 2, we can actually try to get our surrogate to kind of come on and, talk about her experience and kind of figure out how it was even working with us as dads, because I don't think that's a conversation we've ever really had with her. Kind of like, How were we throughout this process? Like, who was the most paranoid one? Who was the, the chill one? And who did you think would lose their mind? Or who do you think would cry during the birth, right? Because, of course, we were there for the birth. They're our babies, okay? So I think that would be pretty cool to kind of get Julie on here and kind of like, kind of have that little moment. I think that'll be fun. So that is something that you all should look forward to. But yes, so we got our surrogate. Let's fast forward, right? We got our surrogate. She carried the babies perfectly, right? I mean, I think we had one little hiccup where, she had called us or text us and told us that she was on the toilet, and all of a sudden she saw some spotting, some blood, and we were just like, oh my God, like what's going on? I mean, me personally, I immediately jumped to miscarriage. That's just me. I jumped to it. But Vernon had to literally like calm me down by giving me kind of like facts like, okay, this could be what's going on. Like, let's not jump to the conclusions, right? So it was definitely good to kind of have someone who was a little more level-headed, who knew a little more, because I was going crazy. Blood, when you think of blood, you think of miscarriage. That's just me, right? So Vernon kind of talked me down, and we kind of, was communicating with her. She went to the doctor, and what did they say happened? It was...
the twins, the uterus attachment, more or less, the placenta attachment to the uterus was not, earlier in the pregnancy, was not complete, and it was near the cervix opening. So it was mild placenta previa, but the placenta gradually moves. Right. So what was happening earlier in the pregnancy, there was a pocket of blood that had created itself. But the placenta was doing what the placenta is supposed to do, which is attaching completely to the uterine wall. And while in the process of attaching, it pushed out the pocket of blood. So it was nothing but a pocket of blood. It was
nothing but a pocket of blood. Look at this. Look, this man knows more about your lady parts. For all the ladies watching, he knows more about your lady parts than you know about your lady parts. So let me just say that, okay? He does. And throughout this entire process, I mean, we were even... So our surrogate let us, just invited us into everything. We went to doctor's appointments. Like, we would drive up and go to doctor's appointments. For everyone that wants to know, no, we did not go to every doctor's appointment. But every doctor's appointment, we were on that FaceTime, on that WhatsApp video call with her. She would show us the sonograms. She would let us speak to the doctors. Vernon would talk to these doctors and be like, so how far is this and this and this and the girth of this and that and that? And they'd be like, how do you know this stuff? He'd be like, oh, I know. But tell me how the centimeters of this and that. And I'd be like, this motherfucker know everything, right? And, but it was so great to kind of have somebody who, because I wasn't doing the research. I was just the one to sit back and be like, boom, look, what we got to do. Tell me what I got to pay for. What we got to, boom, boom. And we'll do that. And he was more so of the all in it research. I want to know this. I want to know that. And it was so great to kind of have that balance as we were going through this process. So I would encourage anyone that wants to go through this process, do your research. Do your research. Don't do too much research because you can get overwhelmed. But once you get into this process and you want to know certain things, do not hesitate to always ask your doctors questions and things like that. That's their job, to answer them. That's what they're there for. So fast forward, she carried our daughters perfectly. Twins normally are, full term for twins are 37 weeks. She carried them to what? Was it 38 weeks? 37 and a half. Yeah. 37 and a half weeks. We were up there, okay? We drove up to Canada December 4th, 2018, because we had got a call saying my water broke. Okay, and we had already had our bags packed at the door.
No, we got a call saying she was having
contractions. Okay, and then we had decided, okay, what do we want to, we had our bags packed at the door already, so we kind of debated, what do you want to do? Do we need to just go up there? Do we just need to go up there? So she was having these contractions. Then eventually, her water did break. But once we got up there, we went straight to the hospital where she was and found out that her water broke, but the mucous membrane didn't break. So, right?
Timeline is off. That's not what happened.
What happened?
she was having contractions, but they were on and off, so then they just stopped altogether. So then when we got up there, we just were up there.
Start over. So, December 4th, 2018, we got a call that she was having contractions. At that time, we had already had our bags packed at the door because we knew that the time was coming soon. So we were waiting to just drive up to Canada. So, we said, okay, we made a decision that, okay, we're going to drive up there. We drove up and we found out that the contractions were what Braxton Hicks contractions. They weren't really, she wasn't really having the baby.
They weren't consistent enough. Right. So they were contractions, but they would stop and they were not progressing and it was inconsistent and they would go away altogether.
Right.
So they just sent her home and it was nothing. And then we more or less just hung out for a week.
Hung out a week? For like more than a week, 2 weeks or so.
Next episode. So the first it was just... It was probably about a week or so we were there before she went back.
Right.
And then she went back because she thought her water broke.
But actually the mucus...
And it was... They don't really fully know.
Right.
Oh, definitely labor was not progressing because even still, that day we were there, the contractions weren't consistent. And then we just got sent home again. But that night particularly, we definitely thought we were having a baby. And we probably should know what date that was. But I don't know what date that was.
I have pictures, so we can find that out. But we definitely thought we were having the babies. We were excited. I was like...
Call people, text people.
The babies are coming! The babies are coming! Went home.
For another...
Disappointed,
literally, we went back home until...
Not back to DC. We went back to our Airbnb. Shout out to Rita.
Oh, yes.
Shout out to Rita up in Canada, okay? Because when I tell you that Airbnb was laid out... She was amazing. As a host, if you ever up in Canada in Guelph and you are looking for an Airbnb, look up Rita. Okay? Rita. Bomb.com. She's amazing. She got the girls gifts. She has 2 amazing granddaughters herself, and we love her. So we love you, Rita. If you're watching this, wherever you are, if you ever watch this or come across this, just know we love you, and we will definitely come back and see you one day.
But we actually made it all the way to the induction date. Like, she probably could have just kept being pregnant.
Yeah.
So the original induction date that we got at the beginning of the pregnancy, she made it all the way there.
Yup.
And we induced her that morning.
And we thought that we were,
The birth probably should be another video.
Yeah. Oh, we definitely do. What you mean?
Like, to discuss that process in itself.
Oh. Well, okay. Well, Vernon said the birth has to be another video, guys. Okay. So what I actually would love to do, right, is to have the birth as another video so we can discuss the birth, what that looked like, how we kind of brought our girls over the border and got back into the United States with no problems at all. And we may even give you some little clips of the actual birth because, of course, me being the videographer and photographer that I am, in my past life, I recorded the entire thing. So, stay tuned. And so for the next episode, because actually we're going to get Julie on here. We're going to have our surrogate come on and we're going to have that conversation. But for the next episode, we do want to tell you about our birth. So please stay tuned. Welcome to the Girl Dads Chronicles. Everything Girl Dad, everything the LC Twins too. If you're not following the LC Twins, which is Harper and Knox on Instagram, follow the LC Twins at the LC Twins. My name is Rico again. I'm at Rico Meets World on Instagram. And
I'm Vernon, and I don't want to share my Instagram.
He's just... And this is what I have to deal with. But until next time, we will see you. Thank you for listening.